Why are they doing this? They do to us.
Welcome back to Horror Movies. Today, I will be showing you a horror adventure film from 2013 titled The Green Inferno. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In a certain college, there is a social activism group called ACT. It is led by a guy named Alejandro and his girlfriend, Kara. In the early hours of a particular morning, the group puts up a notion to the college for their janitor's health insurance. A freshman, Justine, sees this and envies them. Later that morning, as Justine goes to class with her friend, Casey, she stares at Alejandro while he plays the guitar on the premises. In class, the teacher gives a presentation on female circumcision, also known as FGM. Justine asks if her dad, who is a lawyer at the UN, could do something about it. The teacher explains to her that FGM, short for female genital mutilation, is a global problem that requires every lawyer in the UN to stop it. After class, Jonah runs up to Justine and hands her a flyer from Alejandro to join ACT. He also tells Justine they would be celebrating their victory on the janitor's health insurance that night. Casey, however, discourages her from joining. That evening, Justine meets with her dad to discuss the FGM issue. He tells Justine the issue cannot be solved overnight and there is no way the UN would invade a country because it finds them doing something it thinks is illegal or immoral. Justine later attends the ACT's meeting that night. Alejandro discloses a new mission to the members, saying that they will be going to Peru to protect a dying Peruvian tribe called the Yahas from the hands of some powerful petrochemical company that plans to wipe them out along with the jungle. This is in a bid to exploit the Amazon for natural gas contained underneath the lands. What Alejandro doesn't tell them about the Yahas tribe is that they are cannibals. When Justine confronts Alejandro with a question about how he plans to make this happen, he angrily orders her out of the meeting against her pleas. Jonah runs after Justine to explain to her that Alejandro sent her out only because he takes social work very seriously, but Justine doesn't listen to him. Justine is, however, bothered all through the night and wants to be involved in the rescue. She therefore goes the next morning to apologize to Alejandro. Alejandro gives her a second chance and promises to show her how she can act out the cause she cares about the most. He explains that all that is needed to do is to gather a group of people and make one's voice heard on the media to drive any cause. Later that night, they discuss strategies after knowing that a private corporation in Peru is behind the exploitation development and has hired ex-militants to protect the workers and eliminate the villagers. They would be using just their phones, Alejandro says. He has arranged 15 websites and a hacker to give them access to the network from the satellite once they get to the site. Once they start streaming, there will be a multitude of followers ready to tweet the videos once they are uploaded. All they need is for the plot to be exposed to reverse the entire process and drive their cause. Kara begins to feel strange about Justine's membership, thinking perhaps that she has only joined because of Alejandro, and confronts her. When Casey and Justine's dad hear about the trip, they feel wrong and try to discourage Justine, but she insists. The group sets out the next day, to be back on Monday. After their plane touches down, they continue by land to board Carlos's plane for the rest of the journey. Alejandro introduces Carlos as the sponsor of the entire program. He doesn't tell them Carlos is a drug dealer. They head on tricycles to a restaurant where they further discuss the mission in more detail. Alejandro explains that their phones must be fully charged because it's their only weapon. He shuns at Samantha's suggestion for them to get guns. Also, should any one of them be shot, Alejandro explains that the militants will have to shoot them all. However, it's very unlikely that they get shot, he says. When they all begin to shiver, Alejandro gives the ground for whoever wants to back out to do so, and says they are not compelled. They soon leave the restaurant and travel to the Amazon rainforest by water. As soon as the group gets close to their destination, their hearts begin to quake. They change into the same gear as the construction engineers once they are on the coast and stroll through the forest quietly to prevent the constructors from hearing them, so they are able to blend in. Then Alejandro brings out masks for everyone and they immediately distribute chains and padlocks and assign individuals to their posts. These padlocks are for fixing themselves to the posts so that they cannot be moved by the militants. Unfortunately, Justine's padlock fails to lock and Kara ignores her entirely as she cries for help. They blow up one of the bulldozers and immediately start filming while chanting that the corporation should leave the Yahas home alone. The ex-militants arrive pointing guns at them and trying to remove their chains, but to no avail until they get to Justine. They get her to kneel down with a gun to her head. When the rest ask Alejandro what to do, he tells them to keep filming and warns the militants against killing the daughter of the UN attorney. Just then, the news goes viral immediately and the militant pointing a gun at Justine, who also happens to be the leader, gets a call from his authorities. He's instructed to back down and he gives the same instruction to the others. The hearts of the rest of them who are in tension become relaxed when they see this. They are then cuffed and taken back to the airstrip to be sent back home after Carlos feeds the military some cash to buy them out. The corporation accepts their cause and stops the exploitation. On Carlos's plane, Justine is worried sick that she was made the bait. What if she was shot, she thinks, while Alejandro announces their feat. When Alejandro later notices Justine's mood, he reveals to her that he deliberately created the role for her because she understood the risks. Not long afterwards, one of the plane's engines explodes and the plane comes crashing to the ground. The plane first rolls and the tail fin breaks off and exposes the back. 2 passengers are thereby drawn off before the plane grazes the forest. Carlos and the pilot are also killed in the crash. Dazed, one of them gets up to look for Brooke and walks into the plane's propeller, which eliminates him. Alejandro asks them to get their act together and start looking for the GPS since they can't find a way out without it. But, Kara suddenly notices a movement in the surrounding bush and walks off to call for help while Alejandro tries to call her back. She is then shot with an arrow, and dies. Just then, the Yahas hunters attack them with tranquilizers and capture them. Then they take them to their clan. Only 7 of them are left: Alejandro, Justine, Daniel, Scott, Jonah, Amy and her girlfriend, Samantha. They take them first to the tribe leader and she gives instructions to lock up the strong ones and start with the weak ones. Only Jonah is very tired at this time, so when he's given water to drink he thanks the villagers unsuspectingly until he's taken onto a platform and butchered. This sends shivers down the spines of the rest of the group. Each individual probably thinking they are going to be next as they observe the villagers cook him up for their meal. Alejandro later reveals to the others that all they did in trying to stop the clan from being destroyed was a trick. Carlos never really cared about the tribe. So what he did was to take a bribe in service of helping a competing company prevent the present corporation from exploiting the village before them. He says the second company will come with bulldozers soon to pick off from where the first left off. The profit in it for Alejandro is that his organization would be known worldwide, which is power for real change. It's how the real world works, he says. He also tips them off that their plane was sabotaged to probably eliminate Carlos. The next morning, the headhunter barges into their cell while Justine affectionately blows her flute for one of the Yaha's children. Then he walks out the ladies and strips them to test for virginity. They find only Justine to be a virgin and rejoice. Then they sedate her and take her into custody. Samantha soon attempts another escape while Justine is away. They distract the guard with a ringing cell phone while she runs away and hides in a canoe. Alejandro doesn't seem to be concerned, however. He just waits for the bulldozers to arrive. Unfortunately for Samantha, she gets caught and also cooked unknown to the rest. Justine is returned with no clothing, but she doesn't remember what they did to her where she was taken. Daniel soon realizes that she's to be circumcised and could bleed to death or die of an infection. Alejandro rather sees this as good enough to give them more days to wait. The villagers later bring them some meat for food. Amy, who is a vegan, takes her own life as soon as she finishes her meal when she finds out that the meat is Samantha's. Justine then wears her clothes. Also, since Daniel and Scott know that she's going to be cooked once the people realize she's dead, they push weed down her mouth in a bid to intoxicate the villagers. It works and the 3 friends see this as an opportunity to escape, but Alejandro prevents Scott from going with them by tranquilizing him and throwing him out of the cell. When the intoxicated villagers find him, they eat him alive. Daniel and Justine flee the village immediately and head towards the crash to find the GPS they brought with them. At the Amazon River, Justine is carried off by the water, but Daniel later saves her. When they get to the crash site, they find all of their dead friends. Also, the GPS's battery has died and they need another. Just when they hear a muffled beep from Kara's phone and try to reach it, they are recaptured by the Yahas. Daniel is then tied to a stake and tortured by the headhunter, who later breaks his arms and legs. Justine is tied up to be circumcised while some cosmetics are applied on her body in preparation. Just when the tribe leader is about to start the incision, she hears a roar and one of the hunters comes running with the head of a construction engineer. He announces an invasion by the construction company. The tribe leader pauses the circumcision activity and goes to lead them for war. She gives instructions and they set out for war with the constructors. The girl Justine earlier befriended soon cuts her loose and helps her escape. She ignores a call for help from Alejandro and flees the village with the girl. She accidentally runs into the war front. Then, using Daniel's phone, which she took before he died, she convinces the militants that she's American. Since the militants are the same people who arrested them the first time, She pretends to be streaming the event and soon breaks the phone to conceal the secret, ending the war. She gets back to the States and tells a different story to the UN about the Yahs. She says that they are not cannibals and they are very friendly. Days later, the sister of Alejandro named Lucia finds a satellite photo of Alejandro in the Amazon and calls to have a chat with Justine. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.